Okay, thank you everyone for being here this morning. This session is Finish What You Started, Attracting Stopouts to Start Again. And we have Dr. Emily Messer here with us, who's the Vice President for Enrollment Management from Jacksonville State University. And joining her today also is Stephanie Nelson, Director of Transfer Pathways. All right, ladies, take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Melissa. Good morning, everyone. My name is Emily Messer. As Melissa said, I'm the Vice President for Enrollment Management at Jacksonville State University. So Jacksonville State University, in case you're not aware, we are not located in Jacksonville, Florida, like many people think. We are located in Northeast Alabama. We are a mid-sized public regional institution. This past fall semester, we had 9,238 students, which was JSU's highest enrollment in almost a decade. So that's about where we are, that mid-size level of student population that is undergraduate and graduate. We offer bachelor's, master's, and 2 doctoral programs here at JSU. So that's just a little bit about us. We serve the Northeast Alabama region, about 11 counties here in this region. And just a little bit about JSU in general, we are just about 30 miles from the Georgia line. So we are somewhat between Atlanta and Birmingham, where we're located. So that's just a little bit about me. Stephanie, would you like to give just a brief introduction and then we'll begin the presentation?
Yeah, so my name is Stephanie Nelson. I am the Director of Transfer Pathways here at JSU. So working with community colleges to form transfer agreements for students. But I also work with post-traditional enrollment initiatives, which includes Finish What You Started, which is what brings me here with you guys today. So very excited to be with you all today. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. As we're beginning, unfortunately, these are virtual sessions. That's what we're doing all across the nation right now. And I was telling Melissa earlier, just 1 year ago, we were all together in person in Washington, D.C. for an outstanding conference. And then the pandemic hit, COVID hit, and we've been all virtual since. So we were very fortunate. We snuck in SACRAO right before everything occurred last year. But since we are virtual, I would love to see who is participating in the presentation today. So if you don't mind, in the chat, if you can just put your name, your title, and your institution, that way we can see who is participating in this morning's session. Also, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to enter those into the chat. With me in presentation mode, I can't see those, but Stephanie will be monitoring those, and Melissa as well, she said. So, well, thanks again for being with us. To tell you a little bit about what we'll be discussing today, I'm trying to move to the presentation outline, and it is not letting me. And we tested this earlier, and it worked. Okay, well, I'll just keep talking until I can figure out how to proceed to the next slide. So this presentation, it was posted as Finish What You Started 2. So to give you a little bit of background, last year at the conference, I presented Attracting Stopouts to Start Again, which was the presentation of, or the implementation of our program, Finish What You Started. At the time, we had not implemented the program. We were just starting to. So this session will give you more information about the marketing and the data, the outcomes that we have with Finish What You Started. Melissa, I hate to refer back to you, but for some reason, this is not.
I'll try to share from my screen.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, let's stop the share and see if you stop sharing and share it again, maybe. Now, is it forwarding on your computer itself?
No, it's not.
Okay, then there's a problem on your computer. So yeah, there we go.
Stephanie can. So for the presentation outline, I will go ahead and move forward. We will discuss why to focus on stop-outs as an enrollment initiative. We will talk about high school trends of high school graduates, which everyone can see that.
Yes, it's the presentation outline. It's your actual. Well, we can see it. It's good.
Okay. Hey, Stephanie, if you'll go to display settings and swap the view, then everyone, yes, perfect.
There you go. Yes, perfect.
Okay. We'll discuss research about stop outs, potential completers, and adult learners. We will discuss implementing the campaigns that we implemented here at JSU. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we will discuss how JSU marketed this campaign and the outcomes of the Finish What You Started campaign. I'm hoping towards the end of the presentation, we can share ideas through either the chat or through the screen. Let's see. Perfect. So why stop out? All of us at our various institutions have students that started maybe their freshman year or maybe transferred in, but something happened. I call it life happened. So it may have been finances. It may have been a life event, medical work, sometimes children come into play. It could have been dissatisfaction with the institution, maybe advising issues, academic rigor might have been too strenuous, especially for students coming from high school into college, or just overall adjustment issues. There are a myriad of reasons why students initially enroll in college, but then stop out. So as we look to explore different audiences for enrollment initiatives, we look at the high school graduation numbers that are to come. So this is an example of the southern region from 2018 to 2028. Obviously, you can see a dramatic decline in high school graduates from about 2025, 2026 to looking ahead for the next few years. We'll look at Alabama specifically because that is where we are located. Similar trend, obviously, significantly lower number of students in this population. And then the next slide is looking at Georgia. As I mentioned earlier, we are located just right at the Georgia-Alabama line. So we actually have a significant number of students from the Atlanta metro area. Also at JSU, we offer in-state tuition to the 10 contiguous counties with the Alabama state line right up against Georgia that border the state. So obviously more students in Georgia, but same trends. So why are we looking at a transition from recruiting traditional students to post-traditional students? And we're not looking at transitioning those recruitment efforts, it's just adding that population for enrollment. So college enrollment, specifically high school graduates, continued to decline. If anyone has read the Chronicle recently, I think just 2 issues ago, on the front cover of the printed version was the demographic cliff, discussing the enrollment cliff that we are about to be experiencing in the slides that I just presented. So many institutions are looking at different audiences to begin recruiting, and the adult learner population is one that JSU is focusing on. Adult learners make up about 27% of the nation's undergraduate population. In particular, another reason that JSU, where we are located, we're looking at this post-traditional population. I believe it's about 18% of the adults in Northeast Alabama have a bachelor's degree. So that is a large population of students that may be interested in completing that bachelor's degree that we specifically want to assist. Obviously mentioned establishing different pipelines outside of just undergraduate enrollment. And then recruiting adult learners is significantly different than recruiting traditional students. So that is something, if you choose to move forward in recruiting post-traditional students, very, very different, and need to be aware of those differences, not just in recruiting those students, but accommodating the students at the university with flexible learning options, additional support through student success, tutoring, advising, etc. So I presented this last year at the conference, and this had just been released. So this was the 2019 Some College No Degree report from the National Student Clearinghouse. This is an excellent press release. If you have never heard it, I believe it's about an hour and a half long. I'm sure you could Google it and find it. This was research on 29 million some college no degree population. The average time out of higher education for these students that they researched was about 10 years. And about half of those had attended college for less than 2 years. You can see the majority only attended one institution, and the majority attended a community college. But this is great information about the massive number of students in this target audience. And of course, this is nationwide, but they are also ways to break this down by state, the southern region, etc. So I mentioned stop outs at the beginning of the presentation. Another word for that could be potential completers, which puts a positive spin on it, which I enjoy focusing on potential completers as opposed to stop outs. But the other thing is that these are adult learners overall, no matter what you call them, stop outs, potential completers. These are adults that never completed their college degree. Each institution can define this differently. Just to give you an example of how JSU categorizes these. So we have been looking at inactive students. So those are students that have not been enrolled in at least 2 years at JSU. Some institutions may just look at students that haven't been enrolled for 1 year. As you're identifying this population, a very important thing to consider is making sure they haven't enrolled and completed a degree from another institution. So before we reach out to any finish what you started students, and that's what we call them, we want to make sure we run that report through National Student Clearinghouse to identify those students that have completed a degree elsewhere, so we remove them from our marketing campaign. Another area to focus on is making sure they're in good standing. We actually have drilled down a little bit further. Students that were not in academic good standing, we've been able to identify those and target them a little bit separately, depending on how many years they've been removed from the institution. And we work very closely, and I'll mention this a little bit later, with the School of Arts and Humanities on this program. So Lippman Hearn is an enrollment, a marketing, a research firm located in Chicago. I'm not sure if you've heard of them, but they only work with nonprofit entities in the nonprofit sector. So they work with many different institutions. But let me get my facts right, 2019, they conducted a study on the U.S. adult learner population to capture this massive segment of potential post-traditional students. In fact, there are 95 million potential students that they included in this study. Of course, not all of those participated, but some facts that they concluded from their study: the majority of respondents were employed full-time. So these are things to be thinking about as you're reaching out to this adult learner population. Half were married or have families. Price and flexibility were the most important factors to be communicated early on as you're reaching out to them about enrolling in your institution. Many of them wanted credit for the experience that they had gained while working, because the majority of them were working full-time. And then 82% said they wanted to enroll in the most affordable place that admits them. I thought this was the most eye-opening study, because these were things we thought that price and flexibility, affordability were important. And the survey pretty much proves that these are the characteristics of this population, and these are the things that they're looking for if they choose to enroll in a college. So as we have identified what this target population looks like, the adult learners, they're working, they want the most affordable option for enrollment. And you all know these days, they could enroll anywhere in the nation. It doesn't have to be the institution that's right in their back door. They can enroll in the big institutions that are always on commercials on TV, right? That are offering all these incentives, and they're fully online, so you can get this degree in 18 months or however long it takes. So why would they choose your institution? So as we look at reaching out to this population, we want to identify the differences between nudging them to enroll in the institution and providing them incentives. So nudging would be sending them text messages, emails, encouraging re-enrollment, encouraging FAFSA completion. Well, they're going to be getting these type of emails. They're getting the TV commercials, they're getting the banner ads, their digital advertising. But what of that is going to make them actually enroll in your institution? And that's where the incentives come in. So some options for incentives would be waived application fee, childcare subsidies, which I would love to hear if any of your institutions have considered that. We have not just yet. Parking passes, which if they're online students, I don't know that that would be an incentive or not, but then scholarships or free courses to some extent. Other institutions may waive their general university fees because, you know, maybe there's a student activity fee, maybe there's an athletic fee, but if these are adult learners, are they going to have time to come to the student activities that are on your campus or the athletic events? Or if they're an online student, is that even an option for them? To give you just a glimpse, kind of a snapshot of what we were looking at JSU. So we ran a report of students just based on these two categories. They'd completed 120 hours at the institution, which is the typical number of hours to complete a degree at JSU, or they had completed 90 hours. You can see we went back to fall of 2000, so the past 20 years to see the data, and we broke it down by different categories, looking at 2, 3, 5-year timeframes. So this is what we started with, like how are we going to drill down with this data and begin marketing what we were calling the Finish What You Started program, which we'll tell you a little bit more about. So Finish What You Started, sorry, keeping a check on the time, is the program that we implemented at JSU. Last year, so 1 year ago today, this was the extent of the slides that we covered at the presentation when I was presenting at SACRAO last year. So what we had determined is that we were going to launch this Finish What You Started campaign, identifying students that had stopped out of JSU, had been enrolled at some point, were currently inactive, but we were trying to re-engage them to re-enroll and complete their degree. So that one of the incentives that we decided to implement was the first class free scholarship. So returning students that fell into those categories that I mentioned earlier, inactive, had attended JSU at some point, who had enrolled in at least 6 credit hours during their first semester of re-enrollment, received their first class free, which was a scholarship for 3 credit hours. So that was the first initiative that we were marketing with Finish What You Started. Most importantly, we wanted to make sure that we were offering these returning students the path of least resistance, which is what we have concluded from all the research on stop-outs, potential completers, and adult learners. So with that, we partnered with the School of Arts and Humanities for their Integrated Studies program. So the Integrated Studies program is newer at JSU. I would say it's about 2 years old. And it's ultimately a general studies program, but through integrated studies, it combines a myriad of courses from all cross departments, cross disciplines, so that it's kind of a custom degree for whatever the student is interested in, provided they meet the specific criteria for the program. So we worked specifically with the Integrated Studies Advisor. So she's the certification advisor for the School of Arts and Humanities, and then we work with the Integrated Studies Advisor to work with these students. The Integrated Studies program is 100% online, so students can complete that without having to come to Jacksonville, Alabama. And as we heard in the Littman-Hearn survey earlier, these students want credit for the work experience that they've had. So the Integrated Studies program does offer experiential work credit for up to 18 hours. Now there is an application process. They have to provide documentation from their employer, certification, documents that they may have had from any trainings they've completed. So it's not just, oh, you've worked for 15 years, you get 18 hours of credit. And so that is housed through the Integrated Studies program. So this is where we were. This was pretty much all we had when I presented this last year. This was our program, and when I came back from Washington, D.C., we started implementing it. And so Stephanie will be joining us now to tell us about how we implemented it and the marketing and the outcomes that we've received from our Finish What You Started program.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Messer. Before I move on into how we actually put this program into place and kind of what we've seen from that, were there any, I cannot see the chat anymore. Do you have any questions about any of the data that Dr. Messer shared previously?
I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, though for those that joined late, they would like for you to put your name, your title, and what university you're from in the chat. But I don't see any questions at this point.
All right, great. Well, I will share then. So this is about actually came on at JSU right around this time. So I got to come in after they had already decided what the plan was, and I just got to help carry the plan out, which is kind of the best place to be in. So like Dr. Messer said, in the summer of 2020, based on all that data and all the processes she shared earlier, we pulled our potential completers. So for us, that meant students who had not been enrolled for the past 2 years, and we specifically targeted, just based on the data, on the research that was available, students that had been out for within the past 10 years, because those are the students who are the most likely to return. We also decided to kind of drill down, like she said, with students who had 90 plus credit hours. So those are the students who are only about a year out from finishing, who have no more than a year left to complete that degree. And then again, very important, as she mentioned, we ran that list through the National Student Clearinghouse to make sure that they had not obtained a degree somewhere else. And so I think from that, there were about a little more than 3,000 students that we targeted with that. And then we launched our marketing campaign. And so one of the main thing that we did was we sent postcards to their last known mailing address. And so as you can see, it's when you're thinking about adult learners, it's really important to target your messaging towards adults. Dr. Messer really wanted to make sure that we were, presenting I think it's something we don't think about a lot of times when we're thinking about adult learners. All of our admissions materials have cute, fresh-faced 18-year-olds on it. But that's not really speaking to, the working mom who's juggling, family and work and all these other responsibilities. So that was kind of our thought process moving forward there. But it just gave students sort of general information about, hey, if you come back, you can have your first class for free. And then it directed them to a custom web page that we just had. It was just jsu.edu/finish. So it's super easy and quick to find. And the messaging is just pretty clear and straight to the point. There. So there's a form that students could fill out, just an inquiry form that actually went directly to the Integrated Studies Advisor. So she gets those emails every time a student requests information, and she reaches out there. And then it also links them to our Integrated Studies degree program, just so they see what options are available to them there. And then also just the frequently asked questions, just sort of clarifying, the questions that we know they're going to have, just to make it as seamless and easy as possible, so that we reduce as many barriers as possible by providing as much information up front, so that students will be more likely to click that request more information button. Something else that we've done when we launched those postcards, we also put the program, the campaign, on the front homepage slider of our website, so that students, if they did come or landed on JSU, they could find the information immediately. And then as we've sort of cycled in and out, this is actually on our homepage slider right now as well. We've just sort of kind of targeted when we think adults are going to be looking into education options, and so we just make sure that information is readily available for them there. So as I mentioned, all of those student inquiries go directly to the Integrated Studies Advisor, who is working with them one-on-one. Something that we've chosen to do is not to put these students into pre-built communication plans. Their situations, if I have 10 students in a week, I have 10 different scenarios that they're working with. They're just all in very different, unique situations. And so especially for adult learners, and the research will back this up, that they just have very specialized needs and need a lot of individualized attention to get them through that funnel to actually enroll. And so while the integrated studies the integrated studies advisor is working with them on the academics piece of it, I have also served as the basically the Finish What You Started recruiter, who works with those students at every stage of the admissions process. So we have it pulled so that I'm notified if they're an inquiry, if they have started their application, if they've submitted their application, if they have their application done but they haven't enrolled. And so those nudges that Dr. Mester was speaking about earlier, I'm there to kind of be the nudger in the background, cheering them on to let them know that they can do it. The data also shows the journey from an adult student from inquiry to enrolled can take up to 2 years. And it's not just a straight line, because life still happens, even when they're in that admissions process. And so having a cheerleader in their corner who's going to help support them through that journey is really important to convert those into enrollments for your university. I did just want to take a second just to speak to how, and this is more anecdotal than research-based probably, but I have found that phone calls tend to be the most successful way of reaching adult students. Not necessarily just because, I mean, if they're only 10 years out, they're very much digital natives. They understand text messages and emails and those things. But most of the adults that I've worked with really just appreciate the one-on-one phone call. It just shows that you're invested in them and that your university is a place that's going to go the extra mile to make sure that they feel supported in their education journey. Something else that's more, in addition to the free class incentive, the undergraduate readmission application is also a free application. It's strange to me that the $35, $50, whatever your application fee is, that's a really big hurdle for a lot of adult students. They're way less likely to just submit that application if they have to pay that application fee. So, I mean, that costs nothing for your university in the long term to waive an application fee. And that really does help a lot of students get over the hurdle of feeling hesitant to invest anything up front. They can sort of dip their toes in the waters without having to really invest any skin in the game just yet. So that's kind of the process for how we have worked with and targeted those students. And then I did just want to share kind of the outcomes that we've seen from this program. This is kind of the most exciting part, I think. So we pulled those students in this July of 2020. And so we were targeting getting students enrolled for fall 2020. And so in the fall of 2020, we had 52 students who re-enrolled as a part of the Finish What You Started campaign, which I think those numbers are fantastic. I mean, those are 52 students who probably would not have enrolled otherwise. Of those 52, 22 of those students were awarded the first class free scholarship. I'll talk about why I think there's a big gap between that 22 and 52 in just a second. And then for this past spring, we had, so some of those 52 students are still working on their degree. Some of them have graduated, but we had 28 additional new students re-enroll for the spring semester, and 18 of those are on the Finish What You Started first class free scholarship for the spring. In addition to those re-enrollments, as of fall 2020, we've had 28 students who have graduated as a part of the Finish What You Started campaign. And again, that's really consistent with what the research says. Some of them were as far back as the 1980s. We had a couple who had been out of college longer than I've been alive, who actually finished their degrees, which is cool because it's never too late to finish what you started. We had one student who had stopped out in the 90s, and then many more in the 2000s, and then consistent with what the research says, and who we were targeting in the marketing, obviously, about half of those 28 were in that 10-year range of having been out. And so the thing that was most shocking to me, maybe just because I'm also pretty new to higher ed as well, was that a lot of those 28 students who have graduated, several of them did not even need any additional coursework. Several of them were now eligible to graduate because graduation requirements have changed since they stopped out. There were some students in the School of Arts and Humanities, there was a certain like exit exam that they had to have to graduate back in the early 2000s, and they've gotten rid of that requirement. And so we've reached out to those students and they call and they're like, oh, I can just graduate now. And so now they have their degrees. We've worked with students who had all of their coursework completed, but they just had holds of a few $100s on their accounts, which they were now able to handle, and now they have their degree. There were even more students who were just 1 or 2 classes short from finishing their degree. Maybe they had some of those life situations when they stopped out in the 2000s, or maybe they ran into financial troubles and now they've been working, like Dr. Messer said, and they're in a better position to finish that now. And so they just needed that little nudge to get them over the line. So we're really, really excited about those numbers moving forward. I also did want to mention that half of those 28 students completed with the Integrated Studies degree program, because it just offers that path of least resistance. So especially for students who, like Dr. Messer said, have been working for Alabama Power for 20 years. They have important skill sets that translate into skills that can be applied towards a degree now. So the Integrated Studies program has been a good fit for those types of students. And then also for students who maybe started at JSU and then they moved on somewhere and they did a little bit of college somewhere else. I've spoken with some students who were a military spouse and they kind of traveled around. They picked up additional college credits in other places. And with Integrated Studies, a lot of times we can apply any additional college credits they've received towards that degree program as well. So we're really excited about that degree program for these adult learners. Moving forward, we are beginning to target the students in the next tier. We're going with kind of a tiered approach of how we're reaching out to these students. So in the summer, we targeted students who had 90 plus credit hours or roughly a year left. We are actually this week sending out, we're just going to replicate that marketing campaign because it was really successful. So we are sending out this week, we've gone through the same process and targeted students who have 75 to 89 credit hours, so roughly 3 semesters left. And then in May, we will send out the next round to students who have between 60 and 74 credit hours, so roughly 4 semesters left to complete. And that's just based on kind of the schedules with the Integrated Studies department and when they have their downtimes right now. So we're excited about hopefully picking up some additional students and helping them get over the finish line in the coming academic year. Something else, and maybe this would be a presentation for next year, that we're looking at implementing is an initiative called Try It. This was actually born out of during the pandemic. We were very blessed at JSU to have kind of a world-renowned emergency management and biosecurity specialist on our faculty, and we offered this free course, this free online course on pandemics. It was called Pandemics and Pestilence. It was an emergency management course really just as a service to the community as part of our initiative for regional stewardship. And there was so much interest in that course. And we had so many former students and alumni take this course that we offered for free that we found it was actually a pretty good recruiting tool. We had several students potential completers who had maybe been kicking the tires, had been thinking about returning to school, but they didn't really want to, they weren't really sure. And they took this online course for free, no application fees, no textbook. It was completely online, completely self-paced, and they loved it. And they were like, man, I really can do college. And so that's something we're looking at moving forward is we've expanded that course to the spring. And then we're looking at offering another sort of general course for free to former students, alumni, and potential students in the next academic year as well. So maybe we'll have an update on that one next year.
Yeah, and just to add a little commentary about the Try It course, we are trying to implement that course so that it's relevant with what's going on in the world. So the first course obviously was a pandemic course. And as Stephanie said, that was derived from our pandemic expert on campus. We are actually looking at this upcoming course for fall 21 and spring 22 to be a mental health course. So a collaboration between probably psychology and maybe social work, because obviously that's a concern right now for not only our college students, our faculty, our staff, really the entire country right now. So we're excited about that. Just wanted to add one more thing before we move into discussion or sharing of ideas. You probably saw that we marketed this program to a specific population of students. We went back for the past 10 years and identified inactive students that had 90 plus credit hours. And Stephanie just shared that we're moving down to the next tier, to the 75 plus credit hours. We actually ran 2 concurrent marketing campaigns. One to that targeted audience of the 10 years out, 90 plus credit hours. That was the postcard. That was an email communication campaign. We also ran a general digital marketing campaign just through our website. So you probably saw there were some students from the 80s and 90s. We didn't specifically market to that population. That was through our general digital marketing campaigns that we ran through our website. So those were students that just happened to see it, came to the website and inquired. When students inquire through the website, those inquiries go to our School of Arts and Humanities, to the Integrated Studies program, so that advisor can reach out to them, and they also go to Stephanie, so she can reach out to them to help them through the re-enrollment process. So we do have, well, just about 7 minutes left. It's kind of difficult to share ideas through this virtual format, but if there are any, feel free to share those in the chat, or if there are any questions. We have a small group, so you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask any questions that you may have. I also wanted to add that I included the PowerPoint in the chat. I believe it was Cindy. Yes, Cindy said that she couldn't download it. So if you want to provide me with your email address in the chat, then I can email that to you as well. Are there any questions?
I don't have a question, just a comment. I'm with UVA, the School of Continuing Professional Studies, and we have 2 online degree completion programs that myself and my counterpart, who's actually online, are in this session to recruit for. And UVA you can only transfer in 60 credit hours. So that's the group that we work with. But we've actually been looking at exploring, reaching out to those students from the College of Arts and Sciences who maybe haven't completed the university as a whole. But one of the comments you made earlier was about differences in fees and or tuition. So our tuition is a little different than that from the main university. We don't charge a difference for in-state or out-of-state tuition. The fee structure is a little different too, because as you mentioned, and our programs are fully online as well, the students don't necessarily need all those resources that the fees are covering if you were a full-time residential type student. So the fees are actually significantly reduced. but students do have access to a large number of the resources on campus, like career services, library. In fact, we have a designated staff member who works with our Bachelor of Interdisciplinary Studies, and it's Bachelor of Professional, we always get this wrong because it's ridiculously long, Health Sciences Management, something, it's BPHM. We're like, who named that thing? So the comprehensive fees, it comes out to like $9 per credit hour. So it's, pretty reasonable in comparison to the program, but love all the things that you're doing. It's great to see. I was in your session last year and to see all the strides that you're making. And I think reaching that adult market is really going to be key as we move forward, because the numbers are staggering.
They are. They're just plain scary for an enrollment management area. So thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for returning this year for the presentation. So who knows what will come next year, maybe more information about the Triad course, as Stephanie said. But I did, to go along with what you said, thank you for adding that, because each institution is so different. Here at JSU, we don't delineate like online or adult students. So unfortunately, they come in, they take 100% online courses, but they're still charged the general university fee. Whereas my former institution, we delineated that population. So our adult and online learners were not charged the student activity fee, the athletic fee. They were charged more of a library fee and a tutoring fee and things like that. So it catered to that population a little bit better than we do at JSU.
Yeah, we actually are the only school out of the 12 at UVA that has a separate admissions process. So they don't use the common application for us. It's kind of a simpler, like we used to think of a regular application back in the day, kind of thing. There are essays, but they don't go through the common app. So we have our own admissions and registrar within the school, because our portfolio also includes a number of certificate options for students, undergrad and graduate. And then we are in the process of standing up a master's degree for the fall, and we have a post-bac medical prep program as well. But Christy and I focus on the two bachelor's programs. So there are a lot of different scope and all that, but it has made it easier for students to apply.
Yes, definitely, for adult learners, and they need that. So. I saw Zach had a question. Does anyone have a really catchy name for adult learners? So we call them post-traditional here at JSU. We actually have a Office of Post-Traditional and Military Student Services. So Stephanie is kind of our post-traditional enrollment counselor, for lack of a better term. So she works with the post-traditional students to get them enrolled at JSU. Once they are enrolled, then we have the Office of Post-Traditional Military Student Services that they can work with. They provide events for them, resources for them, and then we actually just implemented a Student Success Center here at JSU, and we're hoping to have we have success coaches through that Student Success Center. We're hoping to have a success coach specifically for post-traditional students. We have just 3 minutes left. Are there any further questions? I have seen several people are unable to download it, so I have your email addresses and we will email you the PowerPoint. If you want to proceed to the next slide, Stephanie, if you can. Perfect, yes. So keep calm and finish your degree. That's a little bit old. That was like 2 years ago, right? The keep calm, but I loved the finish your degree, so I had to include it. But that's my contact information, and you'll have this presentation if I email it to you, so you'll have my contact information. Feel free to give me a call or send me an email if you have any questions. We are very excited about how far we've come along in just the past year. I will say it is vital to have academic support on this, because if we did not have the support from the advisors in integrated studies, this program would not be where it is. I actually tested our inquiry form on the Finish What You Started page yesterday as we were preparing for this, and submitted my inquiry form. And the advisor from Integrated Studies called me right then. She said, "Hey, I just got your inquiry form. Just, you need something? You know, you've got these degrees. I don't think you need to enroll." And I said, "I was just testing it." But that's how quickly, you know, she gets the inquiry form real time and responds to the students. So it is just as much an enrollment effort as it is a collaboration with academic affairs. Well, we have 1 minute to spare, and so I'll give you that 1 minute back of your time and get ready for the next presentation. Melissa, do you have closing comments?
No, thank you all for attending. We will be sending out a survey after the conference is over so that you can rank any sessions you attend, as well as the conference as a whole. So please complete that when you get it. Ladies, thank you. This was really great. Great information, and congratulations. It's a great program.
Thank you for having us. Nice to see everyone through a little screen. Hopefully we'll see each other in person next year.
Great. Thank you. Bye-bye.